And we are live. Damn, that's really good timing on my part. I just started and it was perfect. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by DK. We are on the deeper dive and we are about to break down an undetermined amount of games. 7 for DraftKings, 9 for FanDuel, depending on which slate you're playing today. We've got a different one. DraftKings, you're done at 8 o'clock tonight. I've come back around. We'll get to that in a second. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Let's start here. DK, what's up?
Not much, man. It's good that it's Friday. We got a pretty solid 7-game slate. So yeah, ready to break it down.
You and me both. So when they originally started dropping these games, I was like, nice. I'm gonna go to bed earlier. This will be a lot better for me. I've come full circle now. I hate it. I want the late swaps.
I've always been against it too, because I'm like big. I think like my biggest edge is late swap, so I've always been against it. I mean, it is kind of nice though being done somewhat early, but I still play the late slate too, so it's like I'm still grinding it no matter what, you know.
Yeah. In my mind, I think when they started doing it, I was still doing the process at 6:30 in the morning, and I was like, "This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me." And I've kept that momentum in my head, even though I stopped doing that show. And now I just want them back. I want to swap Denver Mini and OKC Portland when all my lineups are shit early. I want to try to get some sort of saving grace in the late games. At this point, though, I'm going to be done at 8 o'clock. I'm going to sit back, relax, sweat lineups for like an hour and a half after that, and then put on Denver, Minnesota, and watch some good basketball. Well, watch what should have been good basketball, but Denver sucks.
Yeah, man, Denver's been rough to start the year. I think they will pick it up a bit, but it's been a little brutal so far.
It can't get much worse.
Yeah.
Although, as I say that now, incoming like Nikola Jokic sprained ankle or something. I'm not putting that into the ether, man. I hope that guy never gets hurt. Lots to talk about. I say we just dive into it because there are a couple spots that are probably going to take a little bit of a discussion. This first one kind of is, but we don't know. Boston Celtics, 10.5 point favorites in Charlotte, 233 total. For Boston, I was expecting them to be at full strength, but we got word a little bit later on in the day. Al Horford is going to rest today. So I'm going to start here with a question that I thought would have been really easy in the morning, and now I'm not so sure. Who starts for the Boston Celtics at center?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be Luke Kornet.
Okay.
We saw it in the preseason. Kornet was starting at the 5. I know they kind of played all 3 centers last game. They actually closed with Kada. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be Luke Kornet.
Luke Kornet seems like the most obvious answer, and that's sort of how I'm projecting it right now, and I'm getting a little bit of Luke Kornet. But that Cater run at the end of the last game, he played like, I'm just going to pick the number, I'm going to be off by a minute or whatever, but like 16 straight minutes to close the fourth quarter, and essentially through overtime. They swapped to Hauser for like offense, defense stuff, but he was like plus 14 or something like that in that stretch. And I'm just curious, like, it's Charlotte. Boston's awesome. I don't think it matters whatsoever which one of the centers they pick to start. And I wonder, do they reward him for it? Do they just say, like, look, everybody's going to play, and it's not like you're going to be playing 30 minutes as the starter, but like, do they reward that performance and show people that they can play their way into playing time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely in the range of outcomes. That also tilted me, what was it, last night when they just kind of benched Horford. I had an over on him on prize picks, so that was a little bit frustrating. But yeah, I would say it's probably, I don't know, like 75, 80% chance it's Kornet, and then maybe another 20% or so that's Kada. So it's definitely possible, but I think it's more likely that it is Kornet. Again, he started like every game in the preseason too.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been the first big off the bench. So I think it's Kornet, but there's a slim chance it could be Kada because he did play well in overtime there.
So how are you feeling about a $3,400 Luke Kornet today?
Yeah, I like him. Assuming he starts, I think he's going under-owned right now. We know Kornet's a good point per minute player. I think if he starts, you're probably projecting him for 20 plus minutes. So I actually think he's going under-owned right now. I'm pretty high on Kornet as a value play. I think that you're going to see some Tillman at the 5. I think you're going to see some Queta at the 5. But of those 3 bigs, Kornet is the best point per minute of the group. And again, I think he is the most likely to start. So assuming he starts, I actually think he's going under-owned right now at only about 20%.
I got to 17. I do have a disproportionate amount of Queta at this moment. Not something that's going to hold. Like, we're clearly going to get the Boston starting lineup before lock, and we're going to know it. I'm going to be able to make some adjustments here. But just based on the way that I distributed those setter minutes, I actually did get to a bit of Queta, which, we'll see what that ends up looking like. Certainly a decent value at $200 cheaper than Luke Kornet, but they are certainly going to be rotating through all 3 of those dudes. There's no denying that one. Do you like anything else from Boston, though? Because I think we're already in the same spot we were with these guys last year. When their main dudes are in, they all kind of just look alike. And I don't want to say unappealing, because I wouldn't care if I had any of them, but there's no one that I like desperately want.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that stands out. I saw someone say in the chat that preseason doesn't mean anything. You don't have to factor it in a ton, but we saw one trend in the preseason was that, Peyton Pritchard was taking away minutes from Drew Holiday. And we actually have seen that so far a bit in the regular season. Like Drew Holiday Peyton Pritchard closed over Drew Holiday last game. So that's just something to note. I don't think that's going to happen every game. I think that's, Drew's going to close most games, but at least we know that it is in the range of outcomes, and we know that, the potential is there for Pritchard. But he's priced up to 5K now, so like it is a bit tough to go there. No one really getting insane ownership on the Celtics. It's a good spot against Charlotte. I think if you have like a strong stance on any of these main guys and go ahead and go for it, like Tatum, Brown, White, Drew, even Pritchard viable. But none of them stand out to me. Like I said, I think right now, assuming he starts, Kornet's the guy. But if you wanted to target another one of these main Celtics, I don't think it's a bad idea at low ownership.
I don't have much of these guys. I actually have a little bit of Pritchard and, like a share of Tatum, a share of White. And they're pretty much the same situation on FanDuel. 11% ownership to Kornet, 14 to Jaylen Brown, single digits to everybody else. So I'm not anticipating prioritizing anything from Boston, but really whoever I get from Boston, I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, agree. Someone also said about, Boston potential blowout. That's definitely possible. And we have seen that, Pritchard, it's not every time, but Pritchard can close games in a blowout. So like he'll be in the regular rotation. Then it's possible he can close in a blowout too. So I did want to mention that too, because he could get extended and kind of play with the scrubs a bit if the game does get out of hand.
Charlotte side, potentially getting Brandon Miller back. All signs sort of point to him playing today. At least that's my expectation. 11% ownership coming into Trey Mann on DraftKings. Next highest guy is LaMelo at 3. LaMelo is 10% owned on FanDuel, where he's $700 cheaper, but there is no ownership coming into this Charlotte team. And while I matched the field on that 11% to Trey Mann, it does make me a little nervous that they're getting bodies back.
Yeah, Brandon Miller news is somewhat important. And again, I agree with you. I do think he plays. And if he's back, it's just going to take away minutes from a lot of those kind of rotation players like, Cody Martin and Seth Curry and Trey Mann. Trey Mann has played really well off the bench. Yeah. And he's been shocking when he's out there. So I agree with the ownership. I think he's probably the easiest guy to get to. Still would be viable, in my opinion, if Brandon Miller plays. You mentioned LaMelo Ball. He's getting very little ownership. I think he's a reasonable contrarian play. We know the ceiling on LaMelo. Obviously, there is some blowout risk in this game if it does stay competitive. He has, high 30s minutes in his range of outcomes for sure. So I think he's an okay contrarian option. I don't think there's a ton else to mention here, though. Nick Richards has played really well as the center, but his price is up a bit. So I don't think there's anything else that I'm really interested in Charlotte.
I think there's one spot that we can talk about. We don't really have to talk about it, but I'll point it out. Brandon Miller is 5,900 on FanDuel today. That's like, I expect him to be slightly limited. I'd be pretty surprised if he just went out there and played like 35 minutes today, but 5,900 is not going to be the price that Brandon Miller is in like a week or two if he's just back and playing. If you want to roll the dice on that, that's $1,100 cheaper than DraftKings. Like, there's no chance I'm playing him on DK, but on the FanDuel side, that price opens up the possibility that Brandon Miller is just okay.
Yeah. That price feels like he's underpriced for sure on FanDuel. So yeah, I think he's a solid play there, assuming he's in.
All righty. We'll move it on. Got more to talk about here. Oh my God, it's still happening. This is going to be a real fun conversation. Boy, oh boy, is this starting lineup important. Orlando Magic, 7.5-point dogs in Cleveland, 218 total. So both teams obviously lean heavy into defense. Neither one of them play at a particularly fast pace. Orlando is going to be without Paolo Banchero today and for the foreseeable future, which sucks so much. Franz Wagner is available. He has been battling some sort of illness over the beginning of the season. I have no idea what we can get out of him today. And then we have a Q tag on Goga Batadze. Now let's get to the ownership. We have 40% ownership coming into Jalen Suggs at 5,800. He's 6,800 on FanDuel, which is comical. And we have 38% ownership still coming in to Jonathan Isaac, which it has come down pretty dramatically since it was 80 on our first run during the strategy show today. Let's start with Suggs. Are you anticipating like staggeringly increased minutes for Suggs here?
I don't think you're going to get like a massive increase in minutes for Suggs. So the ownership just kind of scares me right now in those two top guys, Suggs and Isaac. Do you I don't even think it's a guarantee that Isaac starts.
No,
I think
I have him for 16 minutes.
Yeah, I think he's the most likely, but it's not a guarantee. And especially with the way that the Magic run their rotation, like I think you could see a lot of weird stuff here. I think you could see some Mo Wagner at the 4. I think that, Goga Batadze can enter the rotation, play the backup 5. I think you can see some Jet Howard. So this chalk kind of scares me for the Magic right now, both with Suggs and with Isaac. I think I like going underweight to both. We know Isaac is a good point per minute player, but how many minutes can Jonathan Isaac even play right now? Like, I don't know. What do you think his ceiling is for minutes?
24.
Yeah, I would say low.
And that's and I don't really believe in that.
Yeah.
So, I have 0 right now. And unless he gets named the starter, there's not a chance in hell I'm playing Jonathan Isaac today.
Oh yeah, if he comes off the bench, he is, and he still gets that ownership. He is definitely one of the worst plays for sure. So, yeah, I like right now going underweight to those two. Franz is not getting a ton of ownership. He might be my favorite factoring in ownership. Obviously, he's gonna have to do more, get a usage bump and do more ball handling here without Paolo. So even though it's a tough spot, I think Franz is a reasonable option. But yeah, I think the ownership is a bit high right now on Suggs and Isaac.
So I have no Isaac, and the only way he's getting into a lineup for me is if he starts. And even then, I don't know how much it's going to happen depending on what the ownership looks like. I essentially don't have Suggs. Now, that one scares me a little bit more because at least he's real and plays and is good. I just think he's getting juiced too much here. I did everything I could to look through data from last year with Paolo Banchero not around. Surprise, surprise here. Jalen Suggs plays almost exclusively with Paolo Banchero. His samples with him off the floor from all of last year are incredibly minimal. But no matter what I did to his rates, they didn't go crazy high. I'm relatively comped to the markets, and he looks fine, but I'm never going to get him if he's 40% owned. To me, he's wildly overowned. I like him. The price tag is really appealing, but I don't know if Paolo Banchero being out, other than playing time, I don't expect Jalen Suggs to just be a 30% usage dude trying to fill that in. I'm not entirely sure what this boost is, unless it's just they're going to do whatever they can to win these games without Paolo, and they're going to start concentrating a rotation around their best guys, and Suggs starts playing, 32, 33 minutes. Maybe. I'm terrified of this team. I have 11% of them, and they're projected for 123 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the ownership is high. Do you what's your thoughts on some of these fringe guys like Mo Wagner or Anthony Black? I think Cole Anthony maybe could play a little more. I don't know.
Yeah, so I expect Cole Anthony to get additional run today because they just need people that can create their own shot. They don't really have those dudes. A lot of these guys are KCP, Anthony Black, Gary Harris. Like, I'm going to keep naming people like Caleb Houston if he gets in. Like, these are guys that don't look for their own shot. The centers. Mo Wagner does, but that's a kind of a different thing. I'm expecting Anthony Black to start. He looks not that good because he's not that good as like a DFS guy. I mean, they could, in theory, start Gary Harris. I don't know why they would. That's too duplicative over KCP.
I saw Anthony Black had a starter's jersey in shoot around. I don't think we had to factor that in like too much, but I did see that. So I would not be surprised if he gets a start.
Franz just scares me. Like, this whole illness over this first week and a half has been odd. Like, just getting out there, not being able to play, having to sit. Can't imagine his gas tank's totally full, but I mean, I certainly don't mind at all if I get to shares of Franz Wagner in this spot. I'm not super excited about Mo Wagner because I just don't really know what they're going to do. Like, they have enough guys where they don't really have to change anything about their center rotation. Like, they should play Goga more. I think Goga's good. It's weird to me that he doesn't play at all and he's still on the Orlando Magic, but I think they're just as likely to maintain everything they normally do at the 5. And then that gains Mo Wagner maybe an extra minute or two, but he's another guy that just scares me. I'm terrified of this Orlando team because they face Cleveland and they're really, really good defensively.
Yep. And you have, it's Cleveland on the road. There's a shot this game could get out of hand too. I think there's a lot more downside with this team than upside.
I completely agree. So I assume this looks like Memphis did yesterday and they beat Cleveland by 30. It's a weird one, man. Look, if you guys really like some of those stands, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's not coming from me. I don't have it. Oddly enough, though, I have less of Cleveland. They don't have a single guy on DraftKings 10% or higher in ownership. Darius Garland did get to 17% on FanDuel. I have 1 share of Evan Mobley and 1 share of Darius Garland. I'm not that unhappy with running away from the defense versus defense matchup today.
Yep, I agree. This is kind of just an ugly game to target. Both teams play slow. Both teams good defensively. Cleveland basically fully healthy again outside of Strus. No one's really getting much love. Agree with it. Like I said, if you want to target one of the main guys with a strong stance, go for it. But there's nothing that really stands out to me. Dean Wade, been a good addition to the starting lineup for defense for them. Levert's going to play good minutes on the bench, but he's 5K. I think this team is pretty hard to prioritize. I'm basically crossing this team off.
And I assume you sort of in the same boat. Like, if Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, or Darius Garland end up in lineups for you, you're not mad about it. It's just not going to happen all that frequently.
Yep. Not going to go out of my way to do it for sure.
All righty. Let's see. We got... what the hell did I just do? Let's not do that ever again. Like 1,300 people in here or something along those lines. Hit that like button, folks. We're going to do our best to get that like count up to 500 before we turn this one over to Live Before Lock, because that is what's coming up next. 6 p.m. Eastern time. The moment this show ends, you don't have to go anywhere. And there's not even going to be a break in between. We're just going to get Greg and Eric popping right in at the end of the show. We'll talk for like a minute or two. DK and I will duck out. Then you'll get Live Before Lock all the way up until 7 o'clock. And then, exclusively on Playback, which we're on right now, go to playback.tv/Stokastic. We're going to watch some basketball games. We'll be tuned into, we'll probably bounce around for these 3 7 o'clock games, probably bounce around some of those 7:30 games. We'll talk DFS, we'll talk betting, we'll shoot the shit, talk about random stuff, I'm sure. Lots of fun. We want you guys to join us. We give out 20 VIP passes so you guys can watch the games along with us. If you already have League Pass, and there's been plenty of offers from DraftKings and FanDuel that could have gotten you League Pass, link your League Pass account to Playback and you can watch everything. You don't even need that VIP. Very easy. Or you could just hang out and chat and talk to us. It's fun. Do it. The New York Knicks are 6.5-point favorites in Detroit. 217.5 total is the lowest total on today's slate. For the Knicks, we are waiting on some news that will carry quite a bit of weight. Karl Anthony Towns is questionable in this one. Based on where the line is right now and how I have it projected, It appears Towns is playing. If Towns ends up out, run to the sportsbook as fast as you can and take the Detroit points because the line will come down a little bit. Besides that, 25% ownership coming into Josh Hart on DraftKings, 10 to Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and Karl Anthony Towns, Brandon Miller, game time decision. So absolutely no news whatsoever. I anxiously await people to tell us. 13% ownership to Josh Hart on FanDuel, 13 to Jalen Brunson. I have one guy quite heavily here for New York and scattered amounts of the rest of them. What do you like for the Knicks, assuming Towns is in?
Yeah, so assuming Towns is in, I think Josh Hart's probably the easiest guy to get to. I agree with the ownership. He's getting some love. He should be. He's just at a solid price point there, 5.9. He's playing huge minutes right now. No, not a surprise that the Knicks are running very tight rotation, 8 guys, and they're playing the starters big minutes. So in agreement with Hart getting some ownership. I think he's a good play. I think he's safe. No one else really getting insane ownership. I think if Cat plays, he's a reasonable play there at 8.1. Just had a really good game in a tough spot there against the Heat. If he misses, you should get Jericho Sims and Huck Porty splitting the center minutes. They're both a flat min price. They would instantly become really good values. The other pieces, Brunson at 8.4. No real strong take on him. He's getting around 10% ownership. Mikal Bridges, OG getting a little bit of love. But yeah, I think Hart's the easiest guy to get to. McBride, if we were lacking value on the slate, I think I would have a lot more interest in him, but we already have a good amount of value. We'll talk about more in the later games too. So I think mainly for me, it would be Hart, Cat if he plays, and if Cat misses, we're looking to those cheap centers.
Yeah, no Towns is going to lead us to Sims and Huck Porty to battle with all the other 3K centers from Boston, some of the other stuff we'll talk about. I mean, Sims and Huck Porty do not project as great point per dollar or point per minute plays, but they will be fantastic point per dollar plays if we're projecting, these two guys to play 20 plus minutes and they're the flat min. Sims in particular, because of having that power forward eligibility, he will become a real big thing. I buried the lead though. Josh Hart in 50% of my lineups right now.
You're a big Josh Hart guy.
I'm really not.
I feel like you've been overweight to him though. At least every stream that
I have
so far. Yeah.
You know what? Like I am and I'm not. I don't know. It's weird. I do rep the Villanova dudes pretty heavily. I spent a lot of time on the Villanova campus while I was in college. Not attending it for sure. They would never take me. But my best friend went there. So I spent a lot of time at Villanova. And I ride pretty hard for the Wildcats. But I've never really had a huge appeal to Josh Hart. I'd like him on my team, but like I have a hard time rooting for him. I have no idea why.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really someone. I don't think there's like a lot of people out there that are like massive Josh Hart fans,
Just Josh Hart, probably.
Yeah.
Now, the Pistons side, not really pulling much love. 13% ownership coming into Cade on both sites. Single digits to everybody else, DraftKings and FanDuel. I got to 16% of Cade. I have 9% of Jaden Ivey. I don't really have anything else from Detroit. I'm not really mad about that either.
Yeah, not a ton standing out to me either. Last game, you did see Duren foul out in like 10 minutes. So that's why you saw the minutes increase for Isaiah Stewart. The coaching staff did hint at playing Stewart a little bit more. I don't really think they would take away minutes from Duren. I think maybe he could play a little bit alongside Duren because obviously we saw that last year, but he's basically been playing the backup 5 this year. One other thing to note is just like the starters have been getting good run for the Pistons, like Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. They're playing 30 plus minutes a night, still at their price point. So I think it's hard to go there. Cade's getting the most love on this team at 8.5. Agree with it. I don't think he really stands out, but like he's a reasonable contrarian option. Duren at 6.1. Again, I don't think we expect him to foul out in 10 minutes again. I think he goes back to his normal, around 30 minutes a night. Makes him another reasonable contrarian play at center position. But again, high opportunity cost. We have a lot of good center plays. So, I think Cade's probably the easiest guy to get to, but not a ton else that I love for Detroit.
Yeah, same page. I think we're going to be talking about things we like a little bit more here. Sacramento Kings, 6.5 point favorites in Atlanta, 236.5 total. This is the highest total on today's slate. Sacramento not pulling all that much ownership. Around 10 for Sabonis, around 10 for Fox. 15 for Sabonis on FanDuel because he has the power forward eligibility. I like the idea of getting to any of the main 4 Sacramento dudes. It's not really happening all that much. I am a little bit over the field on Domantas Sabonis, but they're in a really nice spot here against Atlanta. This is a pretty bad defense.
Yeah, really good spot here for the Kings. As we've talked about, they're running a very tight rotation, basically playing 8 guys, playing the starters a lot. I think Fox and Sabonis probably the 2 preferred options there. 9-6 for Sabonis, 8-6 for Fox. Again, like them both, neither getting insane ownership. Keegan Murray continues to play good minutes. He's only 6.1K. I think he's a fair play there in the mid-range. Herter and Monk are viable as well. Kevin Herter's range of outcomes for minutes is relatively wide, right? If he struggles, they can kind of limit him. If he's playing well, we've seen him play 30 plus minutes. We saw him play 33 there against Portland. So I think any of the main 4 look good. I think Fox and Sabonis are my 2 preferred options here. Monk and Herter are viable value options. Trey Lyles is obviously in the rotation. I don't think it's necessary to go to him just because we have a lot of good value on the slate. So maybe on a different slate, if we're lacking value, he would be interesting. But yeah, I think mainly for me, it would be the top guys. But Fox and Bonus, the 2 preferred guys.
Yeah, I like Murray and DeRozan as like GPP pivots. If you build like a chalky lineup and swap into these guys, because they're not pulling any ownership at all. But no priorities. The priorities lie on the Atlanta side. Well, at least one of them does. 10% ownership coming into Trey on both sites. You got 10 on Jalen Johnson for FanDuel. You've got around 15 for David Roddy on both sites. And am I going to go off in this particular moment. And then we have 40 going to Risa Shea on both sites. I'm going to say this right now, and then I'm going to throw it to you. Can you explain to me why Risa Shea is 43% owned and David Roddy is 15?
Makes no sense.
I have 60% of David Roddy right now.
Yep, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think factoring in the ownership, I would much rather play Roddy over Risa Shea. In my opinion, both these guys should be coming in at similar ownership, and for some reason, Risa Shea is getting way more love. Now, I think Risa Shea is a good value, but I just don't understand why Roddy is not getting more ownership. This team is extremely shorthanded. Roddy also dealt with some foul trouble in the first half last game and lost some run. He probably would have played 35 plus minutes if he did not get in foul trouble. So yeah, I'm in complete agreement there with you on Roddy. I really like him in his current ownership. This is one of my favorite teams to target. I'm pretty high in Trey and Jalen Johnson as well. Like you said, about 10% ownership to Trey. Love the upside in him playing massive minutes, has the ball in his hands a ton. Jalen Johnson is averaging like 80 passes made per game. He also has the ball in his hands a ton. He's only getting about 5% ownership. Love the upside in him after a slow start to the season. So pretty high in Trey and Jalen Johnson. I think they're going under-owned. A total agreement with you and Roddy. I think he was going way under-owned. And then I even have some interesting Garrison Matthews. He's 3.3K. It's not an exciting click at all, but like this team just has like no guards. Like he has to play minutes. I think he's going to play low to mid 20s minutes, maybe a little bit more if he plays well. So yeah, there's a lot to like here from the Hawks. You did see a little bit of Larry Nance at the 4 last game. He only played 7 minutes, but I'm expecting a pretty tight rotation. Like you'll see a little bit of Keaton Wallace too, but I think the starters, Trey, Jalen Johnson, Risa Shea, and Roddy are all going to play a lot. And then you're obviously going to get the center split there with Capella and Okongwu. I think it's a little bit tough to get to the centers, but yeah, Trey, Jalen Johnson, Roddy, even Garrison Matthews. I mean, I don't mind Risa Shea. I just think his ownership is already there. But Trey, Jalen Johnson, and Roddy, I think are my 3 of my favorite plays in the slate.
Yeah, I don't want it to make it sound like I don't like Risa Shea. He's in 40% of my stuff. I just don't understand why those 2 guys have such a disparity after what we saw in the last game and what we know is coming from Atlanta today. It makes... I think they're basically the exact same guy today.
Yeah,
it's weird.
I think they should be similar ownership for sure.
Yeah.
So
I'm very happy they're not, and I will continue to keep my David Roddy stand. That will not go anywhere. So anybody who wants to join me on Big Body Roddy today, come on in. The water's fine. And I have 11% of Trey. I certainly wouldn't mind having any more. And I did get a little bit of Matthews as well. So same page there. But this is a Risa Shea David Roddy day, which really doesn't feel like a sentence that should have ever come out of my mouth.
Especially early season NBA. That's something we'd probably be talking about like the last week of the NBA.
Yeah, that feels like a March 27th conversation. Chicago Bulls are 1.5 point underdogs in Brooklyn 226 total. Not a single person on DraftKings for Chicago has ownership north of 10%. Josh Giddey is 27% owned on FanDuel, and Kobe White is 20% owned. We are waiting on news. Zach LaVine questionable, Jalen Smith questionable, Patrick Williams questionable. A lot of moving parts here for Chicago. This feels like a spot that we're certainly going to be swapping in that 7 to 7:30 window if this news comes out right at the tip of the hour. Let's just assume everybody is in for right now. Do you like anything from Chicago?
Yeah, if everyone is in, I don't think there's anything that stands out. I think that like any of the main rotation players would be reasonable options. You know, Vooch is sub 8K, Levine 7-3 with nice eligibility. You know, Kobe White and Josh Giddey both sub 7K. You know, Chicago, another team that's playing the starters good minutes. So I think any of like Vooch, Giddey, Levine, Kobe White would be viable for me. But I think things get pretty interesting here if you start getting some guys ruled out. And my lean right now is I don't think Zach LaVine plays. What do you think about that?
Based on where the line is right now, I am a little bit higher on Brooklyn as a team, which probably sounds insane, and I get it. I just think they're decent defensively. I kind of feel like everybody's in.
Okay.
I think, to me, Patrick Williams is the most likely guy to be out. And the only reason that I say that is because he seems like the most likely guy that would be out in this scenario. I mean, Jalen Smith might be, but like that doesn't really impact what we're doing today. If Patrick Williams is out, that impacts Chicago and can create value. And I don't think it moves the line in any noticeable way, like, because he sucks. But if Levine's out, I think we're moving the line another point or so. And I already like the Brooklyn side, and I'd be surprised if I liked it even more without the line moving. So I'm going to assume it's Levine in. I don't have a ton of confidence in that. Let's hypothesize here. If Patrick Williams, the Patrick Williams side, I think is an easier discussion. So I think we can put it to bed quickly. Obviously, if Jalen Smith is out, just go to like a different backup center and go on about your business. Maybe give Vooch an extra half minute or something. If Williams is out, who do you think starts?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, they could go just a bit of like a smaller lineup, I guess, and throw like Io out there. Could be Julian Phillips or Torrey Craig. I guess I wouldn't be super confident on it if it's just Patrick Williams, who would move into the starting lineup. Do you have a strong lean?
I wouldn't be shocked if they just made it be Torrey Craig and he went out there for 20 minutes and then they closed with Dosunmu.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think, like, the difference between Patrick Williams and Torrey Craig is largely nothing. Could be Dalen Terry, could be Phillips. Somebody's going to look like they have a little bit more value there. All these guys are sitting in the 3K, like low 3Ks. So they're all largely going to look the same. Towns will warm up with the intent to play, and Anthony Black is starting for the Magic, by the way.
Okay. So, yeah, I expect that ownership to drop then on Isaac.
So, yeah, it's going to be one of these random extra dudes. I'd be very surprised if Dosunmu started in Patrick Williams' place. That just seem like the wrong allocation of it, but that also could happen. They'd just be, I mean, you can be small against Brooklyn. The real question then is, if Levine's out, I think we're probably on the same page, so that it's just Dosunmu.
Yes. Yeah, I agree there.
Okay. And then Dosunmu, 4,500 on DraftKings, 5,100 on FanDuel. He's going to look pretty good if you end up giving him an extra minute or two, and I assume he picks up like 15 to 20% ownership.
Yeah. Yeah. So if Levine's out, I think Io would be a really solid value.
All righty. Anything else for Chicago here? Because in the grand scheme of things, I hope everybody's in so I could just ignore them.
Yeah, if Levine does get ruled out, I think Giddey looks really good. He's been, good point per minute. The minutes haven't been crazy on him this year, but I think he would just have to play a bit more. Kobe White would look better. Vooch would look better. So We definitely could have some of these main bulls looking a lot better if you get some guys getting ruled out.
We do have some ownership coming in on the Brooklyn side, 20% to Cam Thomas, 10 to Schroeder, 10 to Cam Johnson, 15 to Ben Simmons, who is in my lineups and makes me want to cry. Why he's point guard only will never make any sense to me. Around 10% for Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, and Simmons on FanDuel. You getting these Brooklyn guys? Because we had a decent chunk of Cam Thomas, meet in the field with Cam Johnson and Ben Simmons. And after this show, I'm going to do something so that I don't get Ben Simmons.
I like the matchup a lot. The Bulls have been playing very, very fast. So this is a team that I've been wanting to target. I think that, Cam Cam Johnson, and Schroeder are probably the preferred options here. Schroeder's played extremely well this year. I don't think he can continue to shoot that well, but the ceiling's there. Cam Thomas, we know, is going to chuck when he's out there. Cam Johnson's playing big minutes. So I think any of those three guys look pretty good. The issue I have with Ben Simmons is obviously, number one, as you pointed out, he's point guard only. And then number two, I just don't see the minutes upside. Right? I think he's kind of capped in this mid-20s minutes or so. I do think that he's a solid value and he'll be productive in the minutes that he plays. Yeah. But you don't really have that minute ceiling with him. We haven't seen Claxton start yet. Maybe they move him in the starting lineup. We'll keep an eye on that. He did play 26 minutes in overtime last game. So that could happen. But you also have Trenton Watford that is back. I don't even know if he's going to make the rotation, but did want to mention that. I think the main guys for me would be Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, and Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, I mean, Trenton Watford can take the Clowney minutes. He could eat into Ben Simmons a little bit. He could eat into some of these other idiots that exist on this team if they wanted to. He could not play at all, which is also very, very real. So I'm going to make sure that I am not getting 20% of Ben Simmons because I don't see a scenario where he's playing 28 minutes today and I get the good luck. I just need him to be really good in his minutes. I need him to pull a Ja Morant yesterday and do everything he possibly could in the exact minutes that I projected him for, which is twice as many fantasy points as that projection entails. God, that
was crazy. Ja had he almost had a triple-double at halftime in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was quite irritated. I didn't have a single share of him.
I didn't have him either, so.
But I have 32% Cam Thomas. I really like it in this spot. I'll like it a little bit less if Dosunmu starts, because then they could actually guard him with someone. If he has a Kobe White or a Zach LaVine, that's a real good deal. But he'll incrementally get worse. It won't really change anything for me, but I expect him to be my most exposed Brooklyn net. We got a little bit of a deal going on right now, guys. I'm assuming you're fans of the NFL, or at least some of you are. There's 2,000 people here. You can't all share my thought process that it stinks. You guys should play it. You know why you should play it? Because you could be like Rick 12324. He is a Stokastic sub. He used our avatar, and then he won the millie on Sunday. Amazing. So we are celebrating by giving everybody 30% off their first payment of any NFL package, week or month. Gets you projections, ownership, boom bust, top stacks, all of our simulation package, everything you could want on that side. And you're getting 30% off. Laffy also recorded a video with Rick, about 15 minutes long, talking about how he uses the tools, how he came about that lineup. So if you're interested on the NFL side, it's a hell of a deal. When we see something big happen like this, we want to reward everybody. So shout out to Rick for picking up the dub, getting the old $1 million transaction into his bank account. Enjoy taxes, brother. Dump some of that back in the next 2 months. You can free roll a little bit of this. But MILL, that's the promo code. Link in the description of this video. Click it, sign up at Stokastic as long as you want. It covers everything. Showdowns, regular slates, whatever you're looking for. So shout out to Rick. Congrats on the millie, brother. Share $1 with me. It would help. The Los Angeles Lakers are 9.5-point favorites in Toronto, 232.5 total. Lakers are pretty standard. They haven't really been doing anything weird since this one started. Probable tag on AD. D'Angelo Russell is available, and pour one out for my boy, Jalen Hood Schifino, who did not have his third-year rookie option picked up. That doesn't happen all that frequently if you want to know how bad someone is, although it did happen to Jalen Smith, and he carved himself out a little bit of a career. So maybe, just maybe, I'm 4 years early on Jalen Hood-Schifino. But for the Lakers, we've got 25% ownership coming into AD on DraftKings, 20 to Reeves, 25 to LeBron, 15 to Rui. We've got 25 to LeBron on FanDuel, 40 to AD on FanDuel, where he has power forward eligibility. I like getting to those four main Lakers. I don't have a single share of anybody else, but I'm 2xing Austin Reeves right now, neutral to AD, half the field of LeBron James, which is pretty consistent for me, and then neutral to Rui. What do you like from the Lakers? Because I'm imagining it's something.
Yeah, I think any of the starting five look pretty good here. Been averaging 30 plus minutes a game for the starters. So they should get good runs, a good spot. LeBron's getting some love. The price point is down, but the role hasn't been the same as it has been in years past. He used to just down a bit. So I think he's okay. Maybe going a little bit over-owned. I like the ceiling on AD, 10.6K. He's been playing extremely well this year. Austin Reeves, I think he's a good play in the mid-range, 6.1. He kind of had a letdown game last game, but not super worried about it. The games before that, 38, 34, 37, 36 minutes, 14, 12, 15 shot attempts. So again, pretty big role for him this year. D'Lo has really struggled. The ownership is not there. If you want to try to buy into D'Lo at very low ownership in this spot, I don't think it's like the worst idea. I think there's other plays in the mid-range I'd rather get to. No real strong takes on Rui. I think he's a fine filler play. Again, has a pretty secure role for this team as well. I think it's pretty hard to get to anyone off the bench. They're going to play four guys on the bench most likely, but not enough for me to really go there, especially with the value that we do have on the slate. So I think any of the starters look good. I think AD and Reeves would probably be my preferred options.
We are in lockstep on that one. I really like Reeves tonight, so I'm sure he'll suck because that's how this usually works for me. But I think he looks really good. Fantasy point per minute, playing 35 a game. Sign me up for that, especially against this Toronto team who really isn't that good. This is probably the worst offense in basketball right now with the guys they have out. And yet, 40% ownership coming into RJ Barrett. I have 50. 14% ownership coming into Jake Puddle. I have 20. And Jonathan Mugbo season again on FanDuel, that is 20% owned there, only 5 on DraftKings. Everybody else is really not pulling any ownership. I assume you're going to have some RJ Barrett today.
Yeah. I think Toronto is another one of my favorite teams to target on the slate. Obviously, there is a little bit of blowout risk here against the Lakers, but Barrett getting ownership, he should be, right? He's 7.2K. There's no Barnes. There's no Quickly. He's going to be dominating the usage. He had 8 assists last game. He's going to do some ball handling. So I think Barrett looks really good. You mentioned Jakob Poeltl, 6.9. Pretty high in him as well. He's been playing big minutes in games that have stayed competitive, and that he's avoided foul trouble. Obviously, there is some foul risk guarding Anthony Davis, but I think Poeltl probably plays mid-30s minutes, assuming he can avoid that foul trouble. I do kind of like Davion Mitchell as a contrarian option. He got in some foul trouble last game. He had 15 potential assists. He's going to have the ball in his hands a good amount with, again, Barnes and Quickly out. So I think Davion Mitchell maybe going a little bit overlooked right now at sub 1%. But Grady Dick in the mid-range is reasonable. You mentioned Mogbo. He started last game. If he starts again, I think he's a decent value play. Chris Boucher is getting no love. He, I think, is a reasonable contrarian option. The minutes upside hasn't really been there for him. He's only played 20 minutes once so far this year. But yeah, I think Barrett and Poeltl are definitely my two preferred options. I think Davion Mitchell's a reasonable contrarian play. I think Grady Dick's a reasonable contrarian play. And then Mogbo, assuming he starts again, I think is a pretty good value play.
Yeah, I got a little bit too much RJ Barrett. I assume he sucks today in comparison to what he was last time out when I didn't really have him. That seems like the perfect scenario for how this shakes out. And I appreciate the shout out to Davion Mitchell. Feels like I'm doing my Wednesday show again, where Spags had him projected for 15 fantasy points higher than the industry.
Definitely can't say that I'm doing that, but yeah, I think at 1%, he's an okay contrarian play.
Shout out Spags if you're watching. I don't have anything else for Toronto though. I don't think that I'm going to have anything other than Barrett or Jake Puddle. Let's see. Okay. Final game of the DraftKings slate. The final two games that we talk about will be FanDuel exclusive. We have the Indiana Pacers, 4.5-point favorites in New Orleans. 232.5 total, same total as the previous game. 10% ownership coming into Tyrese Halliburton on DraftKings. 15-20 for Siakam on DK and FanDuel. Absolutely no ownership coming into anyone else from the Pacers. However, there is a gigantic caveat. Andrew Nembhard is questionable with left knee soreness. Shout out to the Pacers for not disclosing that information last game when he had knee tendonitis. Played 5 minutes and had to leave, and they knew it. But I played him anyway and recommended him. Thank you very much, Rick Carlisle. Not fun. Miles Turner also questionable. Now, that will not impact us in the same way that it did last time because Isaiah Jackson is now up to 4,500. Not that he won't look like a good play, but he's not the broken price tag that he had the last time that we did this. I am currently more than 2x the field on Tyrese Halliburton, neutral to Pascal Siakam, but we are live for major changes. I assume you would agree with me that Mathurin will start in Nembhard's place. Do you think Nembhard's playing? Because I just assume he's not.
No, I think it's either Mathurin. I think Ben Shepherd could start too. It's possible, but I think it's one of those two that would start for Nembhard. And I'm in agreement. I would lean that he's out. I think Miles Turner's more 50-50, but I think Nembhard would say more on the doubtful side.
Okay. What do you like from the Pacers then?
Yeah, so the Miles Turner news is also very important, right? If he gets ruled out, I think Isaiah Jackson's going to be a good value play there at 4.5. This is also the standalone late game on the main slate. So, leaving some flexibility for this game, I don't think it's the worst idea. We have a lot of question marks on the Pelican side as well. So you can move some stuff around depending on what exactly happens. I think if Miles Turner plays at 6'4", he's a pretty good play at about 5% ownership. Halliburton saw a nice assist bump with Nembhard only playing 5 minutes last game. So assuming Nembhard is out, Halliburton, in my opinion, looks a lot better. Yep. Also, if Turner does not play, another thing to note is you saw them basically just go small ball behind him. Once Isaiah Jackson was not in the court, they kind of went to Siakam, Obi Toppin at the 5. So Obi Toppin would be in play for me if Miles Turner gets ruled out. And then, if there's no Nembhard, I think McConnell could play a little bit more. So this team is kind of a wait and see to see what exactly happens. If everyone's in, I don't think there's anyone that's a must, but if we get, Nembhard out or even Turner out, that's where some of these guys look a lot more interesting.
That news is going to be fun when it drops at 7:30 and we're all just random scrambling with like one spot left in our lineups to be able to do absolutely nothing. The Pelicans side, Jordan Hawkins questionable, Yves Missi questionable, Daniel Tice questionable, Herb Jones out, CJ McCollum out, Trey Murphy out, DeJounte Murray out. Oh, I hate this all so much. 50% ownership coming into Jose Alvarado on DraftKings, 22 to Zion Williamson, single digits to everybody else. Slightly different story on FanDuel, where basically everybody looks better. Around 10 for Hawkins, 35 for Zion, 22 for Brandon Ingram, 10 for Javonte Green, and 75 for Jose Alvarado. I have 67% of them on DraftKings at this moment. I'm also 44% to Zion, so 2xing there. I am jamming their two chalk dudes today. And this might look even more insane if that injury news breaks weird.
Yeah, again, 3 guys in the injury report. Jordan Hawkins is one of those guys in the injury report. If he plays, though, I think he's like a decent pivot off Alvarado. I do like Alvarado quite a bit, and I think he should be getting an ownership. I think he's one of the best values in the slate. But Jordan Hawkins coming in at a fraction of the ownership. He played 38 or 39 minutes. He played 39 minutes last game, got 21 shots up. So I think Hawkins would be a decent pivot off of Alvarado. Obviously, you can play them both together too. No issue with that. Zion getting some love. Ingram, not as much. I think of the two spend ups, disregarding ownership, I'd rather go to Zion. But when you factor in ownership and Ingram's coming in about a fourth the ownership of Zion, I think you could make that pivot in tournaments. And then, so if the two centers and Hawkins are in, I don't really think there's anything else that I would be looking to. But, if both those centers get ruled out, you're probably getting JRE starting at the 5. And then things get really gross. You're probably getting a lot more run for Javonte Green. So like I said, this is, I kind of like that this is the late game. And we have a lot of question marks in this because I think it's good for late swap.
It is. Part of me kind of wants to bump this game like 5% across the board to make sure I get a little bit more, give myself the flexibility to move some stuff around. And it's a great environment too. Like Indy's defense is terrible. The Pelicans defense has to be terrible. They don't have NBA players. Their offense stinks, that's for sure. But Zion and Ingram should be able to do whatever they want. Zion does appear to be the guy that I'm trying to get to the most. Not a guy that I usually get to a lot, so I'm kind of interested to roster him finally in my life. And 44%, I'm not mad about it. I have a lot of this game. I'm well over the field on the main guys. Well, Alvarado, not necessarily a main guy, but he is a main guy to DFS today. But Zion, Halliburton, Siakam, those are the pieces that I want from this game, and they're the ones that I'm getting.
Yeah, I like getting exposure to this game, again, depending on what exactly happens. Also, one other thing to note, if one or both those centers get rolled out, I think you would get some more small ball 5 with Zion too, and make him look a little bit better.
If Tice is out and Misi is in, you think you're going to be getting there?
He's 4K. Yeah, I think I would definitely get some Misi.
Okay.
I think you would probably get a split with like him and JRE, and then maybe some Zion minutes of the 5 too. So I definitely would have some interest in Misi there if he's in and Tice is out.
Deegs says Alvarado going to go crazy because of all the smack talk about Puerto Rico recently. Smack talk? They're a floating garbage island. What are you talking about? To be fair, that is like not 0% true. And I don't mean that as a societal thing. They have a garbage problem. It's really hard to get rid of garbage when you live on an island. Run out of places to put that shit.
True.
Eventually it just becomes all garbage. But shout out Tony Hinchcliffe. It's a funny ass joke. And shout out to you guys, let's find the number again, 2,100 plus people in the door. I don't know the like total right now. I'm going to look, but I'm guessing it's criminally low. Hit that thumbs up. You guys know what happens if this show does not get to 500 likes by the time we turn over to Live Before Lock. The screen goes black until it gets unlocked at 500 likes. That is the way that we get to Live Before Lock. Only way we could do that is if the 1,800 people that are in here that haven't done it yet hit that thumbs up. Coming down the home stretch, 2 more games to go. FanDuel only. Denver Nuggets, 4-point dogs in Minnesota, 219 total. I hate this Denver team. No one's rostering this Denver team. Do you want to roster this Denver team?
I don't think there's anything that really stands out. I think you can make the argument for any of the starters with Jokic, Murray, Gordon, MPJ, Brown, but yeah, no standouts here for me. They're running a relatively tight rotation. You're getting Westbrook and Strother playing about 20 minutes off the bench each. They're both viable, but yeah, I don't think it's not the best spot against Minnesota. So I definitely don't want to go out of my way to be rostering any of these guys. Jokic, probably your best bet, but I think any like the main rotation players are viable, like filler plays, but yeah, no standouts.
Yeah, would I mind getting to like Jokic and stuff? Nah, but there's no ownership here. 10% coming into Ant, 13 to DiVincenzo, single digits to everybody else. Does kind of feel like Rudy Gobert is going a little underrepresented here. Just completely unowned on the slate, but I don't know if you've seen his usage this season. It's like 11% or something. He has not been getting to touch the ball all that frequently for the Minnesota Timberwolves. What do you like on the Wolves side?
Yeah, looking at the ownership, I think Naz Reid's an okay contrarian option there, coming in about 2%. He's probably going to play mid-20s minutes, a good point per minute player. So I think he's a reasonable option. Anthony Edwards playing like 40 minutes a night, like the upside on him. But nothing else really stands out to me. I think that, DiVincenzo, Randall, Conley, all viable options. Gobert, again, getting very low ownership. But yeah, I think Ant and probably Naz Reid be the 2 guys I like the most.
Okay. Yeah, I think Gobert looks sneaky in this spot, but I don't have a single like overwhelming priority. Ant would be that guy, which shouldn't be a surprising statement to make. Finally, a game that I would not want to watch at all unless you like playing video games and playing them on rookie level. OKC 11.5-point favorites in Portland, 221 total. No ownership is coming into Oklahoma City. with the assumption, I guess, that they're probably all just going to play limited minutes. They play 15 dudes and beat the shit out of Portland. I don't really like anything from Oklahoma City. Now, obviously, play Shea, Jalen Williams, Chet, if those are things you want to do, but I don't think anybody looks good.
Yeah, looking at, again, I haven't really looked at the FanDuel slate too much, but look at the FanDuel prices. They are kind of priced up. As you said, if you wanted to target any of the main three, J-Dub, Chet, SGA, totally fine. It's good spot for them, but not even a guarantee they play full complement of minutes. They're running a pretty deep rotation. One other thing to note, too, the rookie A.J. Mitchell has been in the rotation kind of as that 10th guy. So we know Dagnall likes running a deep rotation, and he's continuing to do so this year.
I'm going to pass right over the rest of Oklahoma City for Portland. 6% owned Anthony Simons, 10% owned DeAndre Ayton, single digits across the board. I kind of like Simons more than that ownership, but he is going to have a terrible night of every single really good defensive player for 48 minutes or the whatever 48 minus, whatever he's playing. It's going to be rough for everybody on Portland to create offense. Portland's offense is as bad as Oklahoma City's defense is good. And that is a real tough mountain to climb. What do you want to do with Portland?
Yeah, as you mentioned, tough spots. I think it's hard to really like anyone. Ayton, probably the easiest guy to get to there on FanDuel at 6.7. He's going to play low to mid 30s minutes in a competitive game. This game can stay competitive. Scoot has played better than I thought this year off the bench. He really struggled in the preseason, but he's a 5'6", probably not going to go there. The minutes on Denny have been a little bit concerning, I guess, this year. I thought he would be playing kind of in that mid 30s minutes. I've been down a little bit on him. Kamara's prices up a bit. Yeah, there's not much really to like on Portland, especially, and you got the really bad matchup against OKC too.
9 games up, 9 games down. Overall on DraftKings tonight, who are your favorite plays?
Ooh. Okay, so overall, I think that the Hawks look really good. Definitely one of my favorite teams to target. So, Trey, Jalen Johnson, Roddy are up there. I like the Toronto side a good amount. RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl. And then there's some teams that we just have to keep an eye on news, right? The Bulls have a few questionable players. You could have like Giddey looking really good. You have the Pacers and Pelicans, a lot of questionable players. So keep an eye on that. I think Alvarado's good chalk. So yeah, definitely a slate you have to be by your phone / computer until lock.
David Roddy season, ladies and gentlemen. DK, let the people know where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube, DK DFS, or on Twitter. That's going to be DK__DFS, doing DFS and prop content.
I see Greg and Eric hanging out in the waiting room. Come say hi, boys. There's
there
one.
We go. I added myself in. What's up, guys?
Nice. We got the one I wanted.
Yeah. Let me see. How do I boot Eric out of StreamYard? I'm trying to see what kind of admin controls I could do from here.
I'm sure you could do whatever you need to do.
That's true.
That'd be fine. I'm just going to put him on now outside of his own control. Boop. There he is. Didn't want to be here,
I'm
but
trying
he
to
is.
get my background fixed. Just
my bad. I didn't realize that you weren't ready yet. Sorry. There's nothing I can do about it now. Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, imagine we pulled him in and it was just that the meme. There's like the black guy with the huge dick who sits at the edge of his bed, and that's what's on the TV behind Eric.
I thought about that one a lot.
It would be amazing if that was like if we could somehow take control of it and he had no idea and we were just playing ridiculous shit on his TV.
Yeah. Or right there, K Powers in the chat said him hyping himself up in the mirror. We add him in. He's like, "You can do it. You can do it, Eric. Tell him how you really feel today."
It's how I try to go into shows with you every time, because otherwise I'd be a pretty miserable person.
If Jordan were here right now, I would tell him that he needs to get himself to the house so that he can somehow get connected to that Apple TV or AirPlay or whatever it is and figure out a way to commandeer that TV.
Just hack it.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Great.
Good
It
luck.
would be so great. Well, Greg, I will see you later. Eric, if you pop in, I will see you later. DK, I will not see you later, but I'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
All right.
Y'all
DK,
have fun.
Josh. See you guys later. And yeah, I'm going to be with Josh over in Playback exactly 1 hour from now, because now it is time for NBA Live Before Lock. Myself and Eric, deep dive. It is over. So Josh, DK, they have done their part. Now it is time for myself and Eric to bring you guys up until lock, breaking down everything you need to know for DraftKings and FanDuel in the next hour and whatever the hell else ends up popping up over the next period of time. As far as injury news, here's what Eric and I are waiting on right now. These are the most important players on the injury report. Miles Turner is questionable. Zach LaVine is questionable. Brandon Miller is questionable. Jordan Hawkins is questionable. Patrick Williams is questionable. Andrew Nembhard is questionable. And Messi is also questionable for the New Orleans Pelicans, as well as Daniel Tice. So the reason that that could potentially be relevant is individually those guys might not seem like they matter a ton, but in the event like Tyson, Messi, and Hawkins, if all of them are out for New Orleans, then you've got a pretty shorthanded situation. So all stuff that Eric and I are going to be monitoring in the next hour. And then any news that does not break over the course of the next hour, well, Josh and I'll be over on Playback reacting to any of that news and guiding you guys through any late swap while we sweat the games out and watch it on TV. If you guys have not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric, what's happening today, man?
Oh, just such a lovely introduction there from Josh. I feel so loved, so cared for, so adored. Fuck off to him too. And let's have a great Friday. Happy weekend.
Yeah, let's start getting into it. And I just rattled off the injuries that are going to be most important to the slate. Some of them individually, like Messi, typically wouldn't matter. But I mentioned the scenario where it could really impact the slate. What is the scenario you have your eye on the most? Is it a particular injury? Is it a starting lineup? What do you think could be news that would break that would change your lineups the most as they sit right now?
Well, I'm just backloading it all to the Pelicans. They're the only 8 p.m. time. I'm only playing DraftKings today. I've been playing a lot on both sites lately. Zach LaVine will play. That's a little surprising to me. So he's going to be in here today. But I'm planning on backloading my lineups and just giving myself as much swappability into that game specifically. I really don't want any of that news to come out before 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. I haven't said it yet this year because we haven't had like this many different dominoes that could all fall from one island spot. But backloading your lineups, like the timing of the news is as important as the news itself. Like the timing of the news for New Orleans is going to matter so much because the closer we get to 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific, where that news does not come out, the more likely I am to ROI boost Pelicans. The more likely I am to backload, some Pacers in the event that we get Isaiah Jackson as a guy that we really want to get access to. And I just think that doing it that way in the long run and hoping that the news comes out later so that you're always able to kind of react to it. And hey, in the event that everybody's in there, it's an Indy New Orleans game that should move. Is it going to move the same way that Chicago Brooklyn, which has moved to nearly a 230 total? Atlanta is going to be giving Sacramento an opportunity, but there's not really a ton of value to mine out there. Everybody's healthy. I mean, I really just like backloading my lineups on a slate like this and living with the result every single time.
The news has already started. By the way, shout out to Chris Williams. I see that Chris gifted out 5 YouTube memberships and some people have gotten those memberships. So Chris, as always, thank you very much for supporting the channel. If anybody has questions for us over the course of the show, either let us know via a super chat, or if you are a Stokastic sub, at me in the channel, and I'm going to be keeping my eye on that. But already right out of the gate here, Eric, we've got injury news that has broken, and actually a decent amount of it. You had mentioned Zach LaVine. He's in. So LaVine is in. Brandon Miller, he was questionable. He has been ruled out. Patrick Williams, he's in as well, as is Jalen Smith. So we got all those Bulls guys out of the way. They're going to be in. Brandon Miller, he has officially been ruled out. I was really unsure if Miller was going to be back or not. Eric, what do you make of Brandon Miller being out? How is that going to impact your lineups tonight?
Well, I mean, yesterday, was it yesterday, the Trey Mann day, where he just still goes absolutely ballistic? No, it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Basically said, I don't want to get to Trey Mann now with some of these other pieces in. Josh Green ends up having a pretty decent start. He only played 22 minutes, but it did not temper the expectations of Mr. Trey Mann, who went out, played like a man scorned, shot phenomenally well, 10 for 19, tons of usage. I think he's at least in play at 5K against Boston. Like if that game stays in check, maybe he is the sole, guy off the bench who can kind of help that out a little bit. But you get Mesich there, you get Martin, you get Curry, you get so many other guys that are still there. And of course, Josh Green. The prices have kind of come up to reflect that. I guess for me, the one guy that's kind of interesting is Miles Bridges. He only played 24 minutes against Toronto, which was so weird. He just kind of, I mean, it's almost like he's post-contract, like he got paid, and now he's just being lazy out there, which I guess shouldn't surprise anybody. He's not exactly the brightest bulb out there, but I do think at 7K against Boston, he's probably the one guy with Miller out that I got to at least take a revamping and a look at here. LaMelo's gotten up to 9,900. I'm not really in love with that against Boston, but God, Bridges at 7K. If this were last year with the version of Miles Bridges we had throughout the season, we would just be jamming him in even against a Boston team here. So I think from a tournament perspective, it opens up a little bit, but Nick Richards' prices come up. There's so many backcourt pieces off the bench. Then prices have kind of like started to factor in Brandon Miller being out here for the last couple, not entirely. Like there's still a little bit if you want to try to force it, but considering it's that first window of games, I'm probably not going to do a ton with it outside of give a little boost to Bridges.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to not at least consider Trey Mann. I'm interested to see where his ownership lands after this because, you know, you and I, like you had just said, he had the big game. You and I were thinking that, hey, Trey Mann probably not going to be in the best situation after he wasn't starting. We didn't know what his minutes were going to look like coming off the bench. Still played 28 minutes, but he had a 31.5% usage rate, ends up putting up 27 points. So, I think that even in a tough matchup against Boston, we have to consider Trey Mann as an option in the absence of Brandon Miller once again.
Yep, definitely.
And as far as anything else here, I did see that CG had asked us, is it possible to ROI boost an entire team, or you have to do it one player at a time, and then also do ROI boost before or after the contest sim? Yes, the ROI boost you do after the contest sim, and you have to boost the players individually. And I want to ask you this, Eric, because you had already brought it up where you said that you want to try to backload your lineups, which makes sense, right? Because we currently have a lot of potential injury news for that final game that locks on the slate, because it's not just the Pelicans that have the injuries. We also got Miles Turner questionable, which you had mentioned. We want to have Isaiah Jackson in lineups should Miles Turner end up being ruled out. And it's not that Isaiah Jackson was bad the other day. He just fouled out in limited minutes. And then I think that also impacted how aggressive that he could have been. So, you know, it was whatever. He was like 3,800 and scored 20 fantasy points. It wasn't the worst result in the world, but it certainly wasn't what we were looking for the other day. But I'd be perfectly fine with going back to him, especially if it's against a depleted Pelicans front court. It's already not a good front court. Misi questionable, Tice questionable, and then the other guys from Indiana as well. I know we hit on this before, but just reiterating it with Turner and Nembhard being questionable. So what are you going to, let's say that this is the situation heading into lock. How would that impact how you prepare your lineups in the Sims before you were to upload them to DraftKings and FanDuel?
So I like to do it in the projections page right from the get-go, not even necessarily in the post-contest sim. So we got Jacob, my guy Jacob, who I get to hang out with every single day. I've probably spent more time with him than my wife over the course of the last couple of years. But let's head back over to the contest generator. So I think there's kind of two ways to go about it. You can ROI boost, but then you're making 10,000 lineups that don't necessarily factor in what I'm looking at. And I think you can go to the filters. You can make it just specifically New Orleans. You can also go and go by team. We could organize it by team if you want to do it that way, just to make it easy on you. So we're only going to be grouping by New Orleans and by Indy. So if you go and scroll down, you might have to like alternate between the two, but I want to give a little bit more ownership to a certain number of guys here. First off, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram. We want to have some flexibility. We want to have a little bit more, I think, boosting their ownership just with the event. Like I don't want to go crazy with it, but you can boost the ownership like up to 99 times of percentage ownership. So keep touch like maybe 5%. So go to 5 or 7. Yeah. So go to 5 and then a little bit more with Ingram as well. I think also doing it with Jordan Hawkins. But then the big one for me that I think really matters, who's at 0.1% right now, is Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I think this is a guy that you definitely want to carve out some lineups where you're at least simming, knowing that there's going to be at least like 3-4% of him. Because again, sharp people are there. You can ROI boost this after the fact, but the big problem that you'll have doing this in the post-contest sim is those 10,000 lineups aren't going to take into account the news that could potentially drop. And so I really like to do this on the entry screen, simply so I'm simming out lineups with some of the pieces that exist now. And then I'm combining it with like the potential where Jeremiah Robinson Earl could be potentially one of the best value plays if you get Missy and Daniel Tice ruled out. So I want to take Jeremiah Robinson Earl, and I want to take him up to 10. So give him a tap up to 10, producer Jacob. And now I want to run the lineups in this iteration. Now, there's a lot of other factors and a lot of other things that I've done on my side of the screen that I like to do. It's just a personal preference. It helped me, I had 2 5-figure days last year that ended up just making my year. This year had one of those as well, where it's just been purely because of the things that I can do with the sim that I couldn't do before. It basically was just running simulation, or not running simulations, just making lineups. Hey, I want to get to 25% Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I can do that. I can put caps on guys, but like for me, I think it's very, very important to kind of project how you think the news could break down, building a pool of lineups, and then maybe opening another tab where you do it differently, where you have the lineups coming out a different side so that you get that exposure. You can kind of combine the lineups, take the highest ROI from both of them, combine them. You have a pretty darn good portfolio. And that's how I'm going to do it with 150 tonight.
Got some super chats here, so let's start answering some of these. First is from Price Production. He says, which players' pace-adjusted stats and opponent's defensive rating impact his ceiling the most tonight on FanDuel? I got to be honest, things I don't really care about too much. So the issue with some things like opponent defensive rating is, like NBA, it's team defense. It's not necessarily where it's going to be like, oh my God, this guy guards this guy for the entirety of the game. Players also don't really overlap. The only thing that I really look at, like individually, is let's say somebody like a Wemby was going to be out, and then I might look at like, oh, look, the Spurs' defensive efficiency is terrible without Wembanyama. That's been the case, but what was the case all of last year, and I'm sure it's going to be terrible this year with him off the court as well. But it's also something that kind of gets reflected in the total of the game. It's also something that gets reflected in the spread of the game, and then it also is something that gets impacted in our projections. For the individual pace-adjusted stats, opponent's defensive rating that impacts a player's ceiling the most on FanDuel, I honestly don't really know how to answer that because it's not something that I pay attention to at all. I just care more about what is the points per dollar value on the slate based on the injury news. How can we set ourselves up for late swap, which today is going to be that Pacers-Pelicans game. But let's see, just doing my best to answer this question. I'll ask, maybe you have a different take than me, Eric, but once again, which player's pace-adjusted stats and opponent's defensive rating impact his ceiling the most tonight on FanDuel?
On FanDuel. Okay. Again, it's not something I think a ton about, but I can kind of group it. I do a lot of my work the night before, and then over the day, I just kind of adjust for injury information throughout. The main one that I think makes the most sense is just looking at Chicago's pace so far this season. So defensively, you're adding Josh Giddey, and that's also going to help you push the pace when you have Kobe White, Zach LaVine. I mean, basically the only guy who plays any defense in that starting five is Patrick Williams, and the only guy who plays any defense on this entire team in its entirety is Ayo Dosunmu. You have no more Alex Caruso. DeMar DeRozan, who could slow the basketball down a little bit in the half court, is no longer there. The pace has been out of control here for Chicago, and I do think we're going to see a lot of point guards, shooting guards go completely ballistic against them. Again, I'm not looking at DVP. I'm not looking at anything like that, but you just look at the whole for Chicago so far this season, playing at the fastest pace in basketball, north of 107 possessions per 48 minutes so far. And then defensively, we're just going to see them continue to struggle. They're going to be one of the worst defensive teams that exists in the league right now, 23rd in adjusted defensive rating. They're down in the doldrums there. They have had the most difficult offensive strength of schedule so far, which is kind of strange and surprising to me. But the pace alone, and then you can factor it in with Josh Giddey and Kobe White defense, that's probably going to be the first one that comes to mind. I think Cameron Thomas is a really interesting tournament play on today's slate. Somebody that hasn't been there as much, but everybody's going to go to the well for Dennis Schroeder every single time in these kind of places. I mean, he's been playing awesome basketball. It's kind of where I want to fire up some Cam Thomas. They're only like 3 fantasy points apart, but in terms of ownership, everybody wants to play Schroeder.
Yeah, maybe, last few slates that Brandon Miller's been out, just the easiest and most sensible button to click has been LaMelo Ball, but playing against the Boston Celtics today. So we're just talking about like opponent's defensive rating. Surely that going up against the Celtics is more difficult than some of the other recent matchups that LaMelo Ball has had, because there's no more difficult matchup than the Boston Celtics, and Hornets have played a pretty easy schedule so far this year. So I'd say, maybe the defense of the Celtics, also potential for blowout risk. That could also be something that kind of caps the upside of LaMelo Ball. So I'll say him. Is LaMelo somebody? I'm rerunning my lineups now with Brandon Miller being out. Is LaMelo somebody that you are going to be looking to get to in your lineups for GPPs? Because I'm rerunning everything, and I'm sure I'll get to some of them, but just less than I have, and probably in a pretty significant way compared to other slates recently.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you.
Right. We got another question here. This one is from Phil Senzig. Phil wants to know, Eric, who puts it in the basket? Who is the lotion play of the night?
The lotion goes on the skin. Oh my God, look at me. I'm so beautiful. I'm just a beautiful, beautiful man right there. In no way is that creepy.
No, not at all. It's just a handsome man with pretty eyes.
You know what? I mean, obviously, I'm very, very backloaded in lineups, but I do think you want to kind of make way for some studs in the early session. Jalen Suggs is really, really popular, 5,800. I was thinking about going with him, but I did bet his over 2.5 threes. It's plus 120 over at DK still right now, so come join me for the party. That would be lovely. But I'm going to go Pascal Siakam down against New Orleans. We just saw Golden State find a lot of success kind of all over the place. I mean, they're playing 12 guys, but this is going to be more consolidated. You would think, you would imagine, potentially on both sides of the ball. And I think Pascal Siakam's in a sneaky spot here at 7,400. He has really taken on usage the last two, 18, 20 shot attempts, 26, 29 points respectively. And that was against Orlando and Boston. New Orleans without Herb Jones out there. New Orleans without CJ McCollum. Well, he's not a great defender, obviously, but this front court is pretty darn gettable, and it could become like really, really gettable if you have New Orleans sit Messi and or Tice. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl was okay in spurts for Oklahoma City, but having to play massive minutes out there, good Lord Almighty, I love Pascal Siakam at 7,600.
We've got a question here. So Pascal Siakam, he's going to be Eric's lotion play of the night. Let me think. What do I want to go with for the lotion play?
Oh God, here we go. All the news is coming in for Pelly, so just I'll let you list it off.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever I was about to say isn't go. Well, actually, if all these guys are in, then it's not going to actually change anything. Which Hawkins in, Tyson, Messi in. All right, nothing changes then.
All changes for me. Got some stuff to do.
Well, I mean, in terms of like having to, because I was running everything right now in the Sims. But I mean, the ownership is what the ownership is going to be. The ownership isn't going to change based on that. Alvarado's still going to be really popular, and that was going to be the case anyway. But nobody else to consider in the Pelicans front court now. Let me think. Lotion play. What direction do I want to be going in? All right, I am going to go with Anthony Davis, who appears to be playing now at an MVP level. I think if you had to look at one of the guys who's not one of the core, like SGA, Luka, Jokic, Giannis type players for MVP this year, I think Anthony Davis is working his way into that discussion, considering how well he's played so far to open up the season. And then also, he was somebody who was much more durable last year than he had been in previous years. We got 75 games out of Anthony Davis. That was the first time something like that had happened in a meaningful amount of time. And he's got a great matchup today against the Toronto Raptors. The biggest concern is, are the Raptors going to be able to keep the game competitive? It certainly helps that the game's being played in Toronto, but especially now, Eric, that we did not get extra value opening up from the Pelicans front court, I think Anthony Davis is a really, really strong pay-up option for today, because as long as the game stays close, I expect them to dominate.
I would have smashed that last slate where Anthony Davis, I played so much more of him against Cleveland, and of course it just went horrifically wrong, and I pretty much got just about everything else right on that slate. Yeah, and then there was just the massive train. You needed to have double-digit owned to everybody on that slate. I mean, there was so much value. I just needed a decent game out of him with how much of I mean, Isaiah Jackson you didn't really want. You wanted the other centers that existed, specifically Nick Richards, but I am with you. Anthony Davis on just about every single slate. I'm over the field on. It kind of reminds me of the Slate starter days with Rinpak, who I was just going back and forth with here a second ago. Shout out my guy Rinpak. He is the biggest Anthony Davis stan that I know. There were so many slates where he'd be like, Anthony Davis is 5%, 80% of him. And he would just jam him in every single spot like this. It feels like 2-3 years ago with Anthony Davis, where you get over the field on him every single slate. Harder at 25%, but a little bit easier considering the matchup. It ain't Cleveland on the other side.
I have a confession, which I've said on other content, but I don't think I said it to you. I bet Anthony Davis at 100 to 1 to an MVP this year. So I am I've got a not like a massive investment, but I would like it if Anthony Davis won MVP. I stand to win a little bit of money off it. Not that I put like $1,000 on it or anything like that, but I think I got like $100 down or something like that on Anthony Davis from 80 to 1 to 100 to 1 to win MVP. I kind of like the upside of him this season.
I mean, if Dalton Connect can be a shooter for him where he can get up to 24, 25 minutes and open up the floor, that's what they've needed there forever. I mean, they've been one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league for how many years running with LeBron James and Anthony Davis both there. If Dalton Connect can get a surplus of minutes, if he can knock down shots, if D'Angelo Russell can play off ball too a little bit more, I think the Lakers are a little bit sneaky. The West is way more wide open than the East is. I feel pretty good about that ticket if I'm you, Greg.
Yeah, I like the value on. Is he likely to win? No, but it's certainly a possibility there. By the way, I just want to give you guys an update on where we stand with injury news now that the Pelicans guys have been ruled in. Miles Turner is questionable. Andrew Nembhard is questionable, so still a couple of guys to consider from the Pacers there. But outside of that, we're in the clear at this point. We've gotten most of the news, but we should get during the post-lock show news on Miles Turner and Andrew Nembhard. So guys, do check that out when Josh and I go and do that when this slate locks in 39 minutes. A couple other super chats here, and then I'll go into the Discord. I saw I got a couple of notifications there as well. But RADM says, guys, you Brazilian fan here. My bookie is special lines today. I'd like to know your thoughts on the over-under at even odds. Fox plus DeRozan to score 45 points. Who is scoring more points, Jokic versus Edwards? All right, Fox and DeRozan for 25 points combined. Or what is it? 45 points combined?
I have them for 48 combined.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. It's a good matchup for them against the Atlanta Hawks. It seems reasonable. There's a little bit of negative correlation there, obviously, because they're on the same team. So for every time that Fox shoots, it's one less shot that DeRozan could shoot. It's a kind of market I've never really put any thought in, but that seems fair for the over at even money. And then he wants to know who scores more points tonight, Anthony Edwards or Nikola Jokic. I would lean towards Edwards.
I will do this right now. I have Jokic in for 27.8. I have Edwards in for, where did Anthony Edwards go? See that far down my list? This can't be right. Anthony Edwards, I have Jokic favored between the two. It's weird. And I'm an Anthony Edwards stan, but yeah, I've got Jokic between the two.
All right, I'm going Edwards, and we've got Jokic there from Eric. Keith Wilson left us a super chat. Let's see. There's no... Oh, here we go. Keith Wilson wants to know, is OG Anunoby in play today? Eric, OG Anunoby, is he somebody showing up in lineups for yourself?
No.
So Anunoby's going to play a healthy amount of minutes until he inevitably gets hurt at some point this year, and Tibbs runs him into the ground. Here's the biggest problem with OG Anunoby, though. There are so many mouths to feed in New York now. Like, we've seen Cat monster game the other day. Like, what did Cat finish with? Like 45 and 12 or something like that? Then you got Jalen Brunson as well. Josh Hart isn't going to carry a lot of usage, but he is somebody who's going to pick up some of the peripheral stats. So it's like, it's kind of hard to see how OG, and then also there's Bridges also as another piece who, once again, not super high usage guy, but he's going to be able to be somebody who has the ball in his hands a little bit. He's going to grab rebounds. Outside of just like outlier defensive stat games from OG Anunoby, it's kind of hard for me to see where the scoring comes from reliably because the usage isn't going to be there. I don't really expect the rebound rate to be there. He's never been somebody who's like a super high assist guy or anything like that. So he's a really, really good real life player, OG Anunoby, and he's a great defender. I just don't think that as the Knicks are healthy that he has the most fantasy upside unless he's one of those like 3 steal, 3 block games.
Yeah, I think about it from his days in Toronto. I mean, you had coming off the bench there. I mean, now it's like Baji and Bruce Brown, but like a couple of years ago, even you had Garrett Temple that was there. I think he's actually still there in Toronto, if I remember. I can't remember, but you've always had like low second unit guys, like low usage second unit guys. Your second unit guy is Miles McBride now for the Knicks. So like there's never a gap for OG Anunoby to command like first or second on the team in usage, the way that it would happen at times in Toronto. Now, not alongside Scotty Barnes or Dennis Schroeder when he was there at the beginning of last year, playing alongside OG Anunoby before they both got traded separate places in New York. I think it's just so hard for me when I go through usage to like carve out a time where OG Anunoby isn't going to be third, fourth on this team in usage when you're sharing the ball between Brunson and Cat 36, 38 minutes a time. And then the guy who's getting all the minutes off the bench is out there to shoot and score. That is literally his job. So it's tough sledding to find any of that usage for him. He has to run into an outlier stocks game. He's had a couple of steals in the last couple, but 37 minutes a night still isn't enough if OG Anunoby isn't going to get to 20, 22, 24% usage to command an opportunity to actually smash a 5,200 tag.
Yeah. So like if you had him in a lineup and it was like one of a bunch, I'd say, cool, you'd have OG Anunoby. And if you're just playing one lineup, I wouldn't have OG Anunoby in that one particular lineup. We have some questions in Discord. Then we'll go back to some of the super chats that came in. But first, Hey, I'm Drew wants to know, who are the DK cash plays today, Eric? Who are the players we think you absolutely need in a cash game for tonight?
It's pretty straightforward, I think, at the moment. Jose Alvarado is for sure in your cash game lineup. RJ Barrett is for sure in your cash game lineup at small forward. I would argue Jalen Suggs and Risa Shea, I'm probably not going to be over on tournaments. I'm not sure where you land on Risa Shea in Atlanta. I'm kind of a big stand getting to David Roddy here in this spot, but I think Risa Shea is a cash game lock if he's going to be there at 4,500. I suppose with Barrett being small forward only here too, it sucks to play two small forwards in your forward spots and not get like power forwards. I do love Pascal Siakam, but he's more of a tournament play. I wouldn't call anybody else a lock outside of Alvarado, Barrett, Risa Shea, and that's it. I think that's like the three. And then you can kind of just take top projected from there. Some of the more popular plays, Luke Cornett, if you need a punt center, but I prefer Anthony Davis as my spend up. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, I think you need Jalen Suggs in cash. You need RJ Barrett in cash. I do think you need Risa Shea in cash just because he's going to be like 60, 70% owned in cash games. Hawks shorthanded. And then even if the game, this is certainly not one of the more likely scenarios, but even in games that become blowouts for the Hawks this year, I think Risa Shea is playing garbage time minutes. This team is at best a play-in team. Their goal for this year is really to start a rebuild here now that DeJounte Murray is gone. And Risa Shea, they're going to want to give him a lot of minutes when they can. We saw him get over 30 minutes last game. As long as Hunter's out, I think that's going to continue to be the case unless, there's an injury or foul trouble or whatever. And then, of course, Jose Alvarado is just the biggest no-brainer for cash games. And GPPs as well. He's going to be really popular, but I find him very difficult to get away from. Most popular player on the slate, but totally warranted in Jose Alvarado. I know this was a cash game question, Eric, but Alvarado going to be around 50% owned. Do you have any problem with that?
No, none.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. He started last game, played big minutes. Should probably be the case again today. Next question that we have in Discord is from Stokes. He says, best pay up option tonight to smash on DK, 8,500 and above. Trey, AD, All right, so 8,500 and above is the line he gave us. It's Anthony Davis for me. With it said, there's not one spend up option that I have like 50 or 60% of on DraftKings. It's a handful of guys that I have in like 25 to 35% of lineups. So the one I like the most, it is Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I like Anthony Davis the most. I probably like Zion the second most. Has the power forward eligibility, so yay. He's been a power forward forever on DK. It's more like he has the center eligibility now at this point in time, but I would say Zion probably too if you're looking for some other answer.
And then we've got GQ1 NYC wants to know, how much Trey Mann do we want to be playing on DK? He was saying that he is around 50% using the Sims. I have a little bit less than that, but yeah, Trey Mann's in about a third of my lineups right now. With Brandon Miller out, it's just kind of hard to ignore him. I guess the biggest question here would just be the matchup. What happens if it's a blowout? I mean, Trey Mann could honestly even end up playing garbage time, even if the game was to be one-sided here. But Trey Mann, just considering what his role is, you've got a guy who's 5K, who's been a pretty solid fantasy producer. He's playing solid minutes, it appears. And then also another thing to consider too is that for whatever reason, I can't remember a guard who has the foul rate of LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball constantly gets into foul trouble. And that's something else that adds potential extra minutes to Trey Mann. So he's a chalk piece. I'm not that much different in the field on Trey Mann. Like, I'm not like Alvarado is showing up in like everything for me. I'd say Trey Mann looks good, but I'm not like crazy overweight to him relative to like an Alvarado.
All right, we were going to get Watford back. Now we got to take Watford out. He's questionable. He's not going to play again with this hamstring injury. Against Chicago, probably get to a little bit more DFS and Dorian Finney-Smith again. They got ran out of the gym by Memphis. It kind of limited his minutes to a certain extent, but I'm going to be giving a tiny, tiny bit of an increase to him. Noah Clowney, who still won't be in play for me, but Dorian Finney-Smith, Cameron Johnson look a little bit better. Wendell Carter
Jr.
That's huge.
Scratched tonight. So this
and
is
Goga Batadze
out.
Mo Wagner, 100%. Here we go.
Okay, so Goga Batadze is out. Wendell Carter Jr. is also out. Do you think who do you think ends up starting here? Do they go to Mo Wagner? Do they end up going? Does Jonathan Isaac start today? Because we've also got Boncaro out. What do you think the starting lineup now looks like for the Orlando Magic? And then who is that going to mean we want to be playing for value in DFS?
This is where it helps to be basketball obsessed, because we saw this exact same matchup in the playoffs last year, and they did different things with Jonathan Isaac. He started the series off starting. I think they go Wagner and Wagner, if I had to guess.
I think that's correct, because we just got the starting lineup. We don't even have to guess anymore. Starting lineup:
there you go.
Suggs, Black, Caldwell Pope, Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner. So there's your starting five. And then, of course, as people might be saying, where's Paulo Boncaro? Out. Torn oblique. I'm sure like 99% of you know that, but there might be a couple people in the audience who are watching that. Well, if you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. But there might be people in the audience who are watching that didn't know that Paulo Boncaro is out. So, now we've got no Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Wagner starting in his place. Guess what? That's the best value play on the slate now.
I'd say I'm going to play 100%. But we have 29 minutes to fire this all up. I get it's Cleveland front court. I get you have issues. They can't play Jonathan Isaac more than 18 minutes. They would want to play Jonathan Isaac more than 18 minutes, but he has been hurt. And Goga Batadze, I mean, this is a really, really thin front court. Mo Wagner, if he stays out of foul trouble, he could be like closing games where they're down 15 or 20 in this spot. Like, they're still going to probably have to have him out there. I don't know anything about Tristan da Silva, but I am absolutely looking him up as we talk right now too. He's a flat 3K. Caleb Houston is a guy who can provide some shooting, but he is smaller, small forward, power forward. Their backup center, I think, is Tristan da Silva, unless there is something that I am missing from the G League. I'm pulling up Basketball Monster because they have a pretty good your former employer does a great job of updating everything on the back end as far as guys who are in for two-way contracts. They have Trevelyan Queen and McClung who are available tonight off of the bench, but they're both guards. So there you go. This is Tristan da Silva at flat 3K. I'm actually going to probably put him in for like 18 minutes, but I'm going to play Mo Wagner 30 minutes, and he's just a smash. Jonathan Isaac, I think the tag and his fantasy point rate make him viable as like somebody to be in like 5-10% of lineups, but I legitimately can't project him for more than 18 minutes. He played 11 and 14 the first two, was out the last game, and this hip issue, I'm a little bit worried that they just take it really, really slow on a guy who's eternally injured. Mo Wagner, best value player on the slate. You probably also, with Wendell Carter off the floor, I'm going to run some stuff for usage, but like, there is a case to be made for Franz Wagner, 7,100. Nobody wants to play Franz Wagner, but Anthony Black, pretty much zero offensively. Cole Anthony off the bench, 3,800. If this game gets wonky, maybe they just go Suggs and Cole Anthony and go small ball. It's not going to go well against Jared Allen and Mobley, but you need to up the variance and make some threes. I think there's a case to be made for getting to more Cole Anthony at 3,800 now.
We are going to have to give a little bit of a tutorial to people and where they get their information from, because Eric, we haven't gone over this spiel yet this year. But by the way, Celtics starting lineup, Kornet is starting at center. That was expected with Al Horford resting. That was already taken into account in our data, so nothing changes there. Okay. There's like 8 people in the chat who are telling us we are wrong. Wendell Carter Jr. is starting. The reason they believe that, Eric, is because he is in the starting lineup in the DraftKings lineups. Now, a couple things about this. First of all, this is not actually an error by DraftKings because the starting lineup had come out and Wendell Carter Jr. was in the initial starting lineup. But what has happened since then? Wendell Carter Jr. has been scratched. So do not get your news from the DraftKings lineups. This one in particular is a little bit more excusable because the Wendell Carter Jr. news, it's like fresh news that just broke. It is not a good source of news. It constantly has wrong starting lineups. If you are building your lineups based off that data, you're going to roster players who are not playing. You're going to end up playing guys who you think are starting, who aren't starting. Don't look at the green check mark. People, the green check mark, it'll drive people crazy. Eric is beside himself right now, and I'm on Eric's team with this one. Don't look at the green check marks. It is bad information. Here's where you get your information from. Go on Twitter, get your information from NewsGod. If you're in our Discord channel, turn your notifications on. NewsGod sends out alerts when we get those kinds of news. Turn Twitter notifications on. That's where you get your information from. Not from the DraftKings app, not from the FanDuel app. It's going to give you bad information. Eric, anything else you'd like to add about the return of the green checkmark saga?
I hate it here.
There we go. Yeah, it's just bad information, guys. Don't go and get your information from
We're
there.
trying to help. You act as though it's equitable for me playing 150 lineups to like be on this show and talk you through. Like, I'm trying to be helpful, guys. And the green checkmark thing makes me want to break everything in this room right now. It does. The green checkmark thing has been, I feel like 4 years of my life, I've had to explain how much you should never look at DraftKings.com. But here's the thing. Go ahead. If you think he's playing, have fun. Go ahead and play him. You know what that is? More money for us.
Don't look at it. Wendell, I promise you, unless something insane, Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Wagner is starting at center today for the Magic, not Wendell Carter Jr.
Not only that, and somebody's like, oh, Tristan da Silva is only 6'8", 6'9". He's the next tallest guy on the team outside of Jonathan Isaac, who can only play like 16 minutes, 18 minutes tops. So, like, you have to think about Tristan da Silva at flat 3K. Like, they don't have bodies. They have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen on the other side. I think the other thing we should do is probably get to more of those two guys. They're about to have a field day against Orlando today.
Also, by the way, something else that's kind of funny with people being like, well, this guy's only 6'9". Wendell Carter Jr. is 6'10", like 6'9". I don't know if you saw somebody 6'9" on the street, be like, it's a pretty tall guy right there. Like 6'9" is big enough to play in the front court in the NBA. But it's like they don't have other big guys. The big man minutes, it's going to be whatever Jonathan Isaac could handle. So I think Jonathan Isaac is a good GPP play. The priority is clearly Mo Wagner starting. It's going to be Mo Wagner playing just as much as he can without getting in foul trouble. Then it's going to be what can Jonathan Isaac just physically play? And then the rest of it's just going to be like whoever else's bodies. But I wouldn't play any of those other guys off the end of the bench. We're just kind of trying to fill out the rotation.
People are so mad at me. They're like, all right, shut the fuck up. Mobley was my play of the night. Yeah, like they look so good now. I mean, it goes both ways. And then other people are mad at me that I'm not beginner friendly. Look, this is the majority of your not first time in here hanging out with us. I'm going to guess out of the 3K people, if we were to do a poll, it would come back with like 2% potentially. It's your first time hanging out with. By the way, hit the like button, subscribe button. We love having you here. But also, don't bring up the green check mark. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there was people who were just convinced that Wendell Carter Jr. was starting. I don't think it was anything malicious. I think there was people who were just genuinely confused and didn't have the information. Or you never know. It could be people who'll be like, hey, I know how to push Eric's buttons, and this is an easy way to do it. Which is true.
When I saw the green, the expert trolling is when you just put the green check mark emoji in with nothing else. Like that was expert trolling. Well done, chat. Well done.
Let's, by the way, we're getting updates to our data coming soon. Yeah. So when the projections update and the ownership updates, we'll let you guys know projections that'll be up in like a minute or two here. But some more questions from Discord, then we'll get to those super chats as well. Einstein wants to know, is it reasonable to play Keta over Luke Kornet tonight? Also thoughts on Halliburton. I wouldn't have minded Keta as a contrarian option 5 minutes ago, but it's just drawing thin now, in my opinion, considering all the value that opened up in Orlando's front court.
It is so nice to be on the Orlando side of this one. Charles Moran. No, bad Charles Moran. Bad Charles Moran. Bad.
Disagree. I think that's good work.
Oh, my Lord.
I think that's good work.
Did you just copy paste that because you're a troll too?
Nope. I typed all of them out because I take my work seriously.
You have the exact same number of check marks he did.
I bet I don't. You know how I know I don't? Because I copied and pasted not all of them so that you wouldn't know. Next question. It is from Sniffs1234 in the chat. He wants to know how big of a priority play is Mathurin if Nembhard is out today? I would say if Nembhard plays and if Turner plays, I probably am not going to really want to be getting to Mathurin. If both of them are out, then yeah, Mathurin, I wouldn't consider him a priority play, but I'd say he is in play at that point.
Now, I would call him cash viable if you have Nembhard out.
I think a big reason that he got those minutes last game, though, was because Turner was out in addition to Nembhard, and they ended up going with some. Do we get any more news on that, by the way?
No, we have not gotten any news. The Indy side, we don't have. Pelicans, it sounds like everybody's expected to play, so I already changed that back. So that's good to know. We're still waiting on 2 massive dominoes to fall. I think Nembhard's more likely to miss than not. I definitely have boosted and given myself way for more Nembhard. I also love, for tournaments, the nuke of the night, producer Jacob, hit the thing if you have it.
All right.
That is so hyped to watch.
Very anxious to tell everybody who the nuke of the night is. So now you've piqued my interest. Who is it? Who are you looking at as your favorite GPP play?
So there are not many times in one's life on a 7-game slate that you can get to like a guy that I think is like 1% owned. Is he 1% owned today? Let me see. He's 1.5% owned that you can make an actual viable nuke of the night case for. I love TJ McConnell for tournaments today. TJ McConnell could be the guy when you have a little guy on the other side in Jose Alvarado and you're trying to break down minutes and who's going to play what and how and where. There is a massive ceiling for a 4K TJ McConnell. First off, he's actually good at basketball. Like, the more you look into TJ McConnell, the more that like Indy couldn't keep him off the floor in the playoffs last year. Second part of this is he played 22 minutes against Boston in a competitive spot. I think in competitive spots, we're going to see it work in his favor. Now, he's a little bit undersized. Orlando was taking advantage of it. He only played 6 minutes. He didn't really find any court time, but that was with everybody in on the 28th. If you get the certain dominoes to fall, specifically Nembhard out of there, TJ McConnell can play alongside Tyrese Halliburton. He can play and lead the entire second unit and really be a guy who's a spark plug. They did add Ben Shepherd in to play 23, 21 minutes, but he's 3,800, does have good positionality. But my God, 1.5% owned TJ McConnell at a flat 4K. These are the kind of things that the DFS, it sounds crazy to people who haven't been in the streets before or who don't understand, but like, he is your exotic play of the night. He is your nuke of the night. TJ McConnell has a massive ceiling at just 4K, even in just 20 minutes tonight.
I'm going... Just like you, I'm going to double dip Eric. By the way, Eric was bopping along with the music. You couldn't see because he was off screen, but he was pumped the fuck up when that came on there a second ago. I am going to double dip as well with a nuke of the night and the exotic play of the night. And I'm just going to keep it simple. Mo Wagner is going to be my most rostered player. And another thing too, we saw the other day with Mogba, for example, where he was projected for just a ton of ownership. The news broke around this time. He wasn't nearly as popular as projected. I think we're still early enough in the season, Eric, where some of these just like, and don't get me wrong, but Mo Wagner is going to be very popular. He is not nearly as popular as he would be in the situation like 2 months from now, though.
Agreed.
Just lock and load him. Just going to keep it simple. Nuke of the night, exotic play of the night. He fits the bill for both. So we're double dipping both of them. Exotic play, nuke of the night. And by the way, I like your TJ McConnell as a GPP play as well. I think that's a good angle.
Thank you.
There we have it. Let's get back to Discord questions. We've got, all right, we're caught up on these. So let's go and answer the super chats here. And we have, all right, a bunch of these just came in. Rick Anthony wants to know top 5 values on FanDuel and max many per lineup. Max, I mean, you could play I don't even know how to answer that. Like max value plays per lineup, all of them. You can't play like only value plays and nobody spend up, but you could reasonably play 5 guys that are good, like points per dollar plays on FanDuel that are relatively cheap. I also think it's like pretty easy to answer this question, at least for me, who the 5 best value plays are on FanDuel. Mo Wagner, Jose Alvarado, Risa Shea, Luke Cornett, and Jonathan Isaac now. Mo Wagner, this would have been a little more difficult like 10 minutes ago, but now that we have Mo Wagner and Jonathan Isaac, like those are pretty clearly going to be the top 5 value options.
Yeah, Jonathan Isaac, I'm worried about the minutes. I'm very, 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 very worried about the minutes. I don't think you can. I think we have Jonathan Isaac over projected. If I'm being honest,
we only have him project. You think he plays that much? How many minutes do you think he plays?
I just put him at 15.
Okay, we have him for 22.
That is so many minutes. He's only played 14. That's the most he's played in a game this year.
They haven't been this banged up any game though either.
I feel like Jonathan Isaac's a good NBA player, and if they could play him more, they would play him more. He's only 3,600, so I'm not saying that it's crazy to get to some, but I think, if he's going to be 40, 45% owned, I'm going to have 0. I will flat fade him.
Yeah, well, he's going to be 44% owned over on DraftKings, Eric.
My God, I'm going to have 0 if that's actually the case. And then watch him in 16 minutes put up 30 and bury me. And I'll play TJ McConnell, who will play 5 minutes, and I will never, ever, ever come on the show again.
I also think it's within the realm of possibility that Isaac just plays 25 minutes.
If he plays 25 minutes, you're going to want 100%. If he plays 15 minutes, like I think, is like, more of the baseline. Again, I'll put him at 17 minutes so I get some, because currently I have 0. I put him in for 15 minutes. I gave Tristan da Silva some minutes. We gave him how many minutes? Like 0?
Let me go back to Tristan da Silva, because I'm running Sims now, so I had that.
Yeah, I know, me too. Yeah, and make sure if you need like a second to get your lineups, I know that you're generally very, very, very complimentary.
Andrew Nembhard
out. Let's fucking go. Let's go. TJ McConnell season.
We have Tristan da Silva for 9 minutes.
Oh, that's not enough. I'm going to give him like 12. I will not probably end up playing him, but he is a flat 3K. And is it beyond the realm of possibility that Mo Wagner just gets into foul trouble against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley? No, it is not. They're going to pick on him. They should go out of their way to pick on him. And it's going to get dicey. Cavs win by 30. And that's the other thing too. Somebody had a super chat earlier that I saw come across where they were curious about how we go about in blowout runs, having like
I'm about to get back to the super chats as well.
Do that. Just go. Yep.
All right. So the super chats that we have here, the rest of them that are coming in, I'm just going to answer them in the order that they came in. That's actually the next one because it was after the top 5 FanDuel questions. But Price Productions wants to know, how should I approach rostering players from games with high blowout risk? Are there any specific players who hold value in these matchups tonight? So on small slates, there are oftentimes like 2-3 game slates where maybe there's an 11, 12 point spread. Eric and I will look at those games and we'll try to figure out like, hey, there's not that much value. Maybe it's a really small slate. Who are the players who could really benefit from a blowout? Maybe catch more run than they otherwise would have. The problem I have for this particular slate is that there is now so much value that's opened up that you are drawing to me just like a really thin option. If you're like hoping for, and I think Price Production, because he'd asked a question before related to FanDuel, so I assume it's a FanDuel question. But let's say you're playing somebody like off the bench from OKC, hoping for a blowout. Not only do you need a blowout, you need that guy to play well, and you need them to like outscore Mo Wagner, who's projected for 30 fantasy points now. So there is a time and a place for it. It's just not today.
One thing I'll do in the projections page too on a day like today is I'll go and I'll just order by fantasy points, and I'll just make sure that I get a projection that maybe even looks a little bit crazy just so that I get to more of them. Like I want to get to Anthony Davis, Trae Young, Domantas Sabonis, Jason Tatum, even a little LeBron, Zion Williamson. Like I want to be getting to more of these guys because we have now tons of value. And then obviously Indy opened up with a little bit of value here. Matherin, some McConnell, if you're feeling frisky with me, some ways to really, really bolster your lineups here.
And the next question that we have, and then also approaching players with blowout risk. There aren't any games that have like such insane spreads that I think we have to like do anything significant about it. Usually for me, it's like if the spread is more than 15 points is where I'll start to consider like really impacting my exposure to certain players. The biggest spread of today, it's 11.5 points in the OKC Portland game. It's really not enough blowout risk. Because you think about it, if the game plays to the spread, if it's an 11, 12, 10-point game, the starters are still in at that point. So nothing that's really all that problematic for today. Where that really comes into play, though, price production, some of those like 2 or 3 game slates. Phil Senzig, how do we get those minutes for Mathurin again? Well, Nembhard was just ruled out. That's going to help. So that's immediately going to give him more minutes. But then on top of that, Miles Turner being out would also help.
Yep, I'm with you.
Next question. Jacob Dunn says Magic under 105.5 points seems good versus Cleveland. Agree. Do you have a better take on this than me, Eric? Because I don't have like a real strong take on individual team totals.
So I absolutely love what Dunks and Threes did this season, where I can kind of do EPM and I can do some tweaks in my own spreadsheet to give myself a better idea of it. I haven't gone live with any team totals. If you've watched NBA Lindy's, I haven't covered any yet because I'm still working on it. I like to back test it. It's the same thing you can do in Portfolio EV, where you can set certain thresholds in OddsShopper for what you want to be betting. And you can kind of see how you do for a while, keep track of it. And then if it's a market that you're beating routinely, you can start adding it to the portfolio. I haven't found a way to beat the market in totals in NBA for quite some time. And I've never really thrown them out there on my video as a result. I've started to find a process that I kind of like with Dunks and Threes with the player stats page and the EPM skills page, where you can do it by game. I have Orlando for 103.5 points right now. So slightly towards the under. If it's minus 110, I'd stay away. But obviously it looks even better now with how thin that front court is.
Yeah. By the way, also with Miles Turner in now, because we just got, not in, expected to play. So assuming that he's going to be in, Mathurin's in play, but he's also $5,400. Considering all the value that's opened up, I might get a few lineups with Mathurin, but $5,400, like that's not one of the best value plays on the slate, in my opinion, or anything like that.
No, it's not. I like my TJ McConnell thing still a little bit more. I'm just saying.
Let's see what else we have here. We got a super chat from Jake Lindland. It says single bullet for the $600 DK. He wants to know Luke Cornett. Is he absolutely Luke Cornett? So Luke Cornett was one of my favorite value plays. Still somebody to roster, but that's going to come down, or did come down significantly once Mo Wagner opened up, because he's in pretty much all of my lineups. And then he also wants to know who's our favorite shooting guard tonight. Let's see. Who's the shooting guard I have the most exposure to?
And Luke Cornett, and everything was blue for him. That was good. That was a good pick.
Shooting guard I like the most relative to ownership. Well, actually, he's come up a little bit, but Cam Thomas I like a lot at $7,200. The ceiling for him is so high just because of his scoring ability. The peripheral stats aren't really going to be there for Cam Thomas, but he's live for 40-plus points any given night because this guy will never turn down a shot. I like Cam Thomas at shooting guard.
Love Cam Thomas. He was going to be nuke of the night before I kind of like was updating some of my stuff, and I landed on 22 minutes of TJ McConnell, and life became fun. And the clouds opened and the songs sang, and I had to go to it. And then Jacob had to run with it for exotic play. So there you go.
Totally get it. Keith Wilson, OKC players poopy against the Blazers. Yeah, if you're playing on FanDuel, I would not prioritize any OKC guys.
I will say I kind of love having 2 sites with 2 different setups for slates. I've enjoyed that to start this season. Now tonight I have a bunch of stuff to do and I'm on daddy dog duty. So I'm basically just playing DK because it'll make my night a little bit shorter. But I've really enjoyed that, and I'm with that exact same opinion. Yes, continue on.
Yeah, just better spots to be getting to at this point. Next question is from our guy, Cedric Phillips. Cedric wants to know, what are expectations of Anthony Black tonight? Any reason to go to Cole Anthony over him? Yeah, so looking at my lineups now that they are kind of coming into play, I had some Cole Anthony as a contrarian play before. I lost a lot. I lost pretty much all of my Cole Anthony and Anthony Black ownership in my lineups once all the other value opened up. There's just better guys to be getting to. like you could take a look, and also Einstein asked about Cole Anthony. Does he see a bump? Yeah, he does. If you wanted to have these guys in a couple of lineups, I certainly think there's upside. There's just other value plays with much better upside. So these are like 5% guys for me.
Yeah, Anthony Black is not a good fantasy producer, but over the sample size of the last calendar year, taking Banchero and Wendell Carter off the floor, Cole Anthony is a 1.08 DraftKings points per minute guy. In the event that this game shoots out, you're probably seeing Cole Anthony on the floor a little bit more than Anthony Black. If you're seeing this game blow out, you're probably seeing Cole Anthony on the floor a little bit more. I think there's some viability sub 4K to getting some Cole Anthony.
Let's see what we have next here. And by the way, ownership and player projections, all of that is updated for the Magic news. So I'm running, or for the Pacers news. So I'm running one final sim here. Pierre wants to know favorite players at each position on FanDuel. So I'm currently running a sim, so I don't know exactly who I'm going to wind up with. But just like in general, some of my favorite options on FanDuel, it's really same guys on both sites. But I mean, it's still Jonathan Isaac for me, Mo Wagner, Jalen Suggs is another really strong one. Who are a couple of your other favorite FanDuel options, Eric?
FanDuel, I'm not playing tonight, but I did make lineups before the show. They just don't look anything similar whatsoever. I know Mo Wagner is definitely there now, power forward center. Jose Alvarado was always there. He's the most popular play. Anthony Davis, because now you have value. I also think that LaMelo Ball, if you want to get your LaMelo Ball exposure, 9,200 on FanDuel, a lot better than 9,900 on DK.
Agreed. The next super chat we have here, it is from Eat My Shorts, but it says message retracted, so not sure what it was. Then your towel wants to know Edwards and DeRozan or DeMar or Jason Tatum and Derek White, last two in on FanDuel. I'll say Edwards and DeRozan, but there are overall like better options on the slate than the Celtics guys.
You guys want to go get high?
Want to get high?
Negative chair. Yeah.
Eat My Shorts. I don't know if you had a question, but it's not there anymore. Jeff Williams wants to know, with the value, is Suggs still a core cash play on DraftKings? Yes, Suggs still looks really good.
Suggs still looks incredible, actually.
Yeah, Suggs still a good option.
Never
one of the
bad.
better ones on the slate.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing on your lineups, by the way, Eric?
Almost done. I'm just trying to trim. I think one of us is going to be right. One of us is going to be wrong. I'm very worried about Jonathan Isaac's minutes. Very, very worried. I am putting him in for 18 minutes. That is the highest that I will allow it. I am going to be under the field. I won't get 0, but Jonathan Isaac, I will be rooting against tonight, which is never something I like because I love that kid.
I am like right in line with the field on Jonathan Isaac.
That'd be fine too, but I'm going to make a little bit of a stand under because it would be wild to see him play more than 20 minutes based on what we saw those first two. And I know it's a thinner front court than we had before, but Jonathan Isaac is a guy that they liked in the playoffs last year. And it's not like, yeah, there's different guys there. KCP. Yeah. You know me. I think there's a number of ways of looking at that roster and saying, oh, it's different, Eric. Yeah, it is. But I got to be underweight to 30-something% Jonathan Isaac. If he comes in at like 15, I'm going to break everything in this room as well. So it'll be fun.
Tedious in the Discord chat. And by the way, Miles Turner now officially available to play. Before he was expected to play, so we were expecting it, but now it's official. Tedious wants to know, is Brandon Ingram a good contrarian play as a last guy in for a DK single entry lineup? Are you finding yourself to Brandon Ingram at all?
Little, not as much as I was going to if there was going to be more rebounds up for grabs, maybe playing even some 4. But yeah, Brandon Ingram probably not a priority by any means.
Not for cash game, like large field GPPs. If you had him there, sure.
Crazy.
But yeah, not for a single entry for me.
All right. I'm rolling with this.
Time to get my lineups uploaded here, Eric.
Me too. So yeah, let's just focus on getting that done. We've gotten a lot of the questions here. RJ Barrett or Cam Thomas. I like Cam Thomas relative to ownership more than RJ Barrett, but RJ Barrett is a good chalk piece, playing enough minutes at 34. No Emmanuel Quickly out there. No Scotty Barnes out there. it's kind of a perfect situation that he returned to for fantasy purposes. Only TJ I'm playing is TJ Hooker. Have fun with that, you fucking psychopath. Got him on turbo. That's good. Edwards DeRozan or Tatum Dwight. Last two in on FanDuel. Edwards DeRozan like that. Jeff Williams, $1.99 with the value. Suggs still a core play on DK. Yes, he is. Message retracted.
We answered those, by the way. We're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, then we're all set.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Any
final thoughts? We're about to reach lock. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're going to sign up for our NFL tools, I got good news for you. If you sign up with the promo code MILL, MILL, you get 30% off any of our NFL packages, whatever one you want. If you want our weekly package, core package, max package, monthly, whatever it is you choose, 30% off promo code MILL. We had a sub, Bunt Cakes on Twitter, won $1 million on Sunday, win $1 million like him. We also did an interview with him. It's up on the YouTube channel. If you guys want to see how he used the tools and some of the information on the shows to help build his lineups, go check that out. But this show went super, super quick, Eric. Links down below in the YouTube description box. Sign up for any of the packages that we have here, which also comes with access to our Discord channel. Eric, any final thoughts before Josh and I head on over to Playback and start that up?
No, that was a lot of fun. I love these type of slates. Don't be afraid to be contrarian from time to time on a piece or two. Obviously, we're going to get a lot of chalk coming from The Sims. The Sims has definitely taught a lot of people the right way to go about NBA DFS. But yeah, there's definitely, for me, I ended up with 0% Jonathan Isaac. So I'm going to be very strictly against him here tonight as I ran my last stuff. So yeah, Godspeed to me, Godspeed to you. I have none of him and like 60% TJ McConnell. I am so broken as a person.
All right. Let's see. What did I end up with? I mean, I just ran with, all right, I've got ownership in the teens for myself on McConnell.
Okay. I love that you were actually there on that one. I think that makes me respect you a little bit, whereas I had zero respect for you before.
There we go. There is nothing you could do that would make me respect you, but it's all good. It's all good because we got the weekend coming up. So Eric, have yourself a good weekend. I'm going to be hanging out over and Playback with Josh. We're going to watch the games, react to any starting line. Like, who knows what the Pacers do with their starting lineup? We'll know over the course of the Playback show. So come hang out with us. We're going to go over any late news that comes out, which you never know when that could happen. Now that we're second week into the season, starting lineups, all of that. Guys, have a great night. Thank you very much for watching. Join us over in Playback. I'm about to drop the link in. Peace out.